Welcome back to Just Scrap Radio on BJPen.com. I'm your host, Cole Shelton. Episode 120. We got a good line about UFC Vegas 72 and BKFC 41. First up, we're going to be joined by Luke Rockhold, who's headlining BKFC 41 to preview his fight against Mike Perry. Really good chat with Luke about how this fight kind of came together, all the antics Mike's been doing, obviously wiping the booger, and him asking for his release and why BKFC was the right option and why he's just kind of looking for these one fight deals to just continue to be a free agent, get the highest value after he asked for his UFC release. We're then going to be joined by Julian Erosa to preview his fight against Fernando Padilla. Julian's coming off that knockout loss to Alex Caceres. Now he fights a UFC newcomer, which was a bit surprising for him that he thought maybe he was going to get a more known guy, but he's down to fight anyone. And actually, he's pretty familiar with Fernando, as one of his coaches used to be Fernando's coach. We're then going to be joined by Cody Brundage to preview his fight against Rodolfo Vieira. Of course, these two were supposed to fight last November, it was. And then Rodolfo pulled out. He ended up taking that Michelle Oleksiejczuk fight on short notice a month later, lost by first round knockout. So he's really looking forward to get back into the win column against Rodolfo, and he thinks this is the fight that he can have a lot of success in. We're then going to be joined by Journey Newson to preview his fight against Brian Kelleher. Journey coming off that loss to Sergey Morozov. He knows he could be fighting for his job here. He's 1-3-1 no contest in the UFC. And although it's just one loss, he knows he hasn't really been too consistent, but he thinks fighting a guy like Brian can bring the best out of him and get a stoppage win. And then we're going to be joined by Natan Levy to preview his fight against Pete Rodriguez. Kind of an interesting one. Pete is 1-1 in the UFC, but really hard to know how good he is. Obviously, his debut short notice fight got knocked out by Jack Del Maddalena in the first round. And then he knocks out Mike Jackson. And both those are kind of at the opposite spectrum. Obviously, Jack's a top 15, top 10 guy. Mike's no longer in the UFC, didn't find too much success. And Pete's now dropping to 155. So Natan's really kind of looking like this is Pete's UFC debut. It's his first time he fights someone, not obviously a top 10 guy, but not obviously a guy not in the UFC. But so Natan's really looking forward to this matchup. But be sure to share the show, subscribe, and tune in next week for another episode of Just Scrap Radio. All right, we're joined by Luke Rockhold, who's headlining a BKFC event. Luke, how's it going, man?
I'm driving from training to training to training. That's what I do. Get ready. Can't stop, won't stop.
Obviously, you retired after the Paulo Costa fight, and then kind of came as a surprise that you ended the retirement to sign with Bare Knuckle. Like, I know you obviously asked for your release. Like, what kind of drew you to Bare Knuckle? Because I heard there was a lot of suitors out there for you.
Yeah, I think Bare Knuckle was a one fight deal. It was a nice deal. It was Mike Perry, and it was something different, man. I'm excited by Bare Knuckle, and I think it's a test. Every real fighter wants to test themselves, and something about bare knuckle boxing. It's just so raw and real, and it's to the essence of fighting, of combat sports. I want to get in there, and I want to bang. I want to show people how. I mean, like I've excelled, and I've got better in my game. And I grew up as a wrestler and a jiu-jitsu guy and a kickboxer, and I think my hands have grown so much, and it's a little easier on the body right now. And my leg is, I took so much damage and surgeries on my leg, so that thing needs a break. And to compete at the highest level and go chase a world title without my biggest weapon right now it doesn't make sense. So I think this is a nice little switch for right now, and I'm going to show people a little bit more of who I am. I think last time out with Paulo was just a little eye opener. I'm coming back with a fucking vengeance.
How appealing was the one fight that Bare Knuckle was offering so you didn't have to get locked into something long term?
Very.
Was that kind of the big, kind of sway point for you to sign there then?
I mean, this is what fighting is. Every fight you go out there, you prove your worth. And your worth is different every time you go out there. Long contracts are all bullshit. They're all favoring the promoters. So it's like, go out there and show your worth, do your thing, and you're going to get rewarded. And I'm going to go do that, and I'm going to keep getting big paydays and keep showing people who the fuck I am. So it's motivation to go out there and to train right for that fight and do everything. It's like when you're locked into a contract, you just feel it's a bit of a slavery act.
Do you think fighters or starters kind of realizing that now? We see a big switch where a lot of guys are leaving the UFC and going to free agency where 5-10 years ago, that was never once you kind of were in the UFC, you were in it for life unless they cut you.
Yeah, I think the UFC is going in different ways. Signing with WWE, doing the slap thing. It's not their focus on building the best fighters anymore. They're more about the entertainment, and entertainment is everywhere now, and there's money everywhere, and there's something about bare knuckle. It's just so fucking real, and I think you can't hide from who you are, and it's not just about entertainment. It's like you gotta fucking fight, and you gotta accept raw fists going to your fucking face, and raw your own fist going to someone else's face and not breaking a hand. There's something different about it, and it's more real right now, and I think the UFC is going in a faker direction, and I don't like that shit.
With bare knuckle, like, were you surprised like how much money and stuff they are able to give you guys? Because like I've talked to tons of fighters that left the UFC and signed there, and they're like saying they make more in bare knuckle and like they're treated a lot better in bare knuckle. Like, were you surprised at how much they are willing to pay these fighters?
No, I think there's something to it, man. Once you start watching it and seeing what they're doing, and there's something so intriguing about it, and I think there's an audience, and people are getting behind it. So and it's a fair revenue split, whereas the UFC is just controlling the thing. I mean, they merged with WME, and they're a $12 billion company now, and they're still like suppressing everybody, putting them in shitty hotels, and paying them $50,000 bonuses. It's like, come on, dog. Like, it's like, why? Anybody smart is going to get out of that game, and it's not just want to be a bitch and be like a UFC fighter and attack that. Try to use their platform to build something. Because these people just hold on to the nostalgia of being a UFC fighter like idiots, like Sean Strickland, who just will be a fucking dog slave for the rest of his life.
When you mentioned how you have to kind of prepare to fighting bare knuckle so you don't break your hands or like anything, like how different is training now then? Like, are you training without gloves, or like how do you kind of go about training?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm training with gloves, without gloves. You can't train too much without gloves because you won't make it to the dance. But you got to push and pull just like anything else in life. So you condition what you have, and you aim precisely. If you're throwing wild punches and you're not turning your hands over, um, you're gonna hit your thumbs. You're gonna hit in bad spaces, and you're gonna fucking break your hands. You're gonna compromise yourself. You have to hit like a man. There's a lot of guys and wrestlers and people that throw wild punches, and it works in MMA, but that shit don't work here. And you got to understand where the head's going, and it's very fucking real. I mean, on the real life on the street, you're not gonna have gloves to fight, and in a real street fight, in a real circumstance of life, you have to fight with bare hands. And so there's something very real about it that's intriguing, and it makes me want to be a better fighter.
And then how surprised were you that Mike Perry agreed to take this fight? Because it kind of surprised a lot of people. Obviously, you guys were separated by a bit of a weight difference, and like to see him come all the way up to fight you, like I was pretty surprised he took this one.
I think Mike bit off more than he can chew, and I think I think he wants to test himself. That's what I do respect that about Mike, and I think this is he wants to fight a champion. He wants to test a true test, and he wants to get paid. I mean, no one's gonna watch him otherwise. That he thinks I'm the reason why he's the reason why I'm here. I'm the reason why people are fucking watching. So fuck you. This is a two-way street, and I'm carrying the load, and Mike's my little accomplice.
How much better do you think your striking will be in bare knuckle, where you don't have to worry about like kicks and knees coming at you, or like worry about wrestling or anything, where it's just straight your hands going to work?
People don't know what to expect from me, and people assume what to expect from me because they've seen me get caught a couple times, but I've had to focus on so many other things, and I wasn't there. I did a little bit last time with Paulo, but Mike is you know what to expect of Mike. You know what he's going to bring to the table, and you don't know what I'm going to bring to the table. I think people should understand that, and people are going to have to tune in to see what the fuck's going to go on, because I'm going to put it on his face. Mike's going to be surprised, and he's going to realize. Everyone's going to realize.
And then 2-minute rounds too in bare knuckle. Like, how big do you think that's going to be, where you can really push a pretty hard pace just for 2 minutes?
Yeah, he can for sure, but it's like you have to pace yourself too. You can't. you can't relax and rest in different genres too. You have to. It's straight fucking balls to the wall. So um, it's exciting. Mike just comes forward too. He knows like not how to. Doesn't step back. So um, I gotta calculate. I'm a calculated fighter. Mike's a street fighter, and he's gonna go in there and wing them. And I like to use my brain and my footwork and my speed and my skills. So I think you have the two different versions of people, of fighters, and you have a different world we're stepping into. So let's see who comes out on top.
And then fighting in Colorado, which is obviously elevation. Your last fight against Paulo was in that elevation. Like a lot of fighters were showing it. Like how much do you rely on that one then, and just that experience and knowing what fighting at that high is like?
I don't think it's a big deal. Last time I wasn't in shape. I think you just whatever. You just come up and do your thing. As long as I don't break my nose in the first exchange, where I can't breathe. I mean, try to fight a fight without your nose.
Mm-hmm.
Plug your nose and just try to run around the circles in your fucking room. It ain't gonna work too well. So we'll be fine. I think we'll both be fine. It's 2-minute rounds. It's nothing. It's easy.
And then in that face-off, like Mike like picked his nose and like wiped it on you. Did you notice that in that moment? Like, what do you kind of make that? Because to me, that's pretty gross.
I mean, if I noticed it, I would have slapped the shit out of him. But I mean, there's no truth to it. It was a he obviously had rehearsed and thought about what he's gonna do, but it's not like he's not digging boogies. If he put something on me for real, but like I said before, everything comes back tenfold, and I do it for real. You do it for you fake it. I do it for real. I blew my bloody snotty boogers all over Paul Acosta's face, and you drink that shit, bitch. Paulo, you're my bitch.
With Mike, like in bare knuckle, like always comes forward, like always looking for that finish. Like, how do you kind of see this one playing out?
Mike falls in, and he's gonna wing him, and I just got to be smart. I got to use that against him, and I got to use my length and my footwork, and start tagging him and making him pay. I'm long and I'm accurate, and people don't like I said, they don't know what to expect. I can blast people so easily with my kicks. I haven't had to worry about my hands, but I'm sharp, and you'll see. I think time will tell. We got a fight coming up in 3 or 2.5 weeks now. 2.5 weeks, so I feel good, man. I feel fucking really good.
Say you do go out there and knock out Mike, like what do you like? What is kind of the goal? Like, is it to take another bare knuckle fight and like kind of fight for the belt, or is it just kind of see what options are out there after that?
Whatever I want. That's the beauty of being your own promotion. And that's where I'm going to stay from now on. I'm not, no more contracts. No, the one fight, prove your worth. That's what fighting is, man. When you're at the top of the game and people are willing to watch you, it's like you prove your worth every time you fight. And that should be the stage of what you are and how you get paid. There's no point in being in long-term contracts. It's security for people that are not real fighters, and a company that wants to lock you in and enslave you.
Could you ever see yourself fighting in the UFC again then?
Yeah, I'm not opposed to it on my terms for sure. I mean, I've always wanted to. I've always been intrigued by an Israel fight. I think he's awesome. He's an amazing fighter. I think I'm getting better, and I think I can test him. I think my striking's gotten so much better over the years. As long as I'm in shape and I get things, I think I present a lot of problems for Izzy.
Just two more things. What did you make of Adesanya's knockout over Pereira then?
I thought it was insane. I thought it was just the mental ability to go in there after 3 losses and to stay composed and do his thing. I mean, he put everything into it, and people say what they say, but he took the shots, got compromised, and landed the blows. Man, all the credit to Izzy. I have nothing but respect, and I like watching the kid fight. He's fucking awesome.
Just final
champion.
Just final thing, like you get past Mike, like what is kind of the goal then for you this year? Like, is there any guys you want to fight, or is it like, do you have an idea how many times you want to fight? Like, what's kind of the ideal year look like for you?
I mean, I'm getting better, man. I'm getting better in every way, and I don't want to slow down. I don't want to take time off. I'm you know, I'm obviously I'm 38. I still feel like I'm athletically better than I've ever been, and skill wise, I'm better than I've ever been too. As long as I can keep the body healthy, the time off is obviously hard to come back from at this age. But if I just stay on, which I do plan on this, I want to capitalize on where I'm at and keep and stack some wins up, man. It's been a while. I'm looking forward to winning.
Well, Luke, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you, guys.
All right, we're jumping UFC featherweight Julian Erosa, who's back in action on April 29th. Julian, how's it going, man?
Oh, it's going fantastic. How you doing, brother?
I'm doing well. Like, obviously, the last fight against Caceres, like, what do you take away from that one? Just because, like, obviously, there was this guy in the rankings for you, and it just kind of seemed like just one of those things you just happen to get caught.
Yeah, it's like I tell people about that fight is it's almost like I feel like I got robbed from a fight because like it's almost like he caught me with a magic trick. It was like one of those. It wasn't like he beat me up and got me tired and beat me that way or knocked me out with something like as like a 1-2 or whatever it was. It was like a kick that kind of came out of nowhere. He's really good at covering distance, and that was one thing that kind of surprised me in the fight was his ability to cover distance. And he kind of overthrew a left hand, and I felt like I was really far out of the pocket and still was able to like throw that kick up, and it was kind of delayed as well. If it was like right after the punch, it would have felt a little bit more natural, but he was kind of delayed, so like it was a weird thing, and props to him. It was about as cool a kick as you can get, and it sucks to be on the receiving end of that, but there's a lot of things I took away from that camp and getting ready for that fight that I can use for other things coming up. There was a lot of southpaw looks that I was getting leading into that fight, so a lot I take away from that. Some things on my weight cut that helped me out that last time as well. And so even though you lose a fight, doesn't I mean that should be when you learn the most from it. And so for me, I felt like I really did take a lot out of it, and I can use to my next fights.
Are you surprised by this opponent, like fighting Fernando Padilla, who's making his UFC debut? Because like you were just guy just fight someone in the top 15, and now you're fighting a guy making his debut.
Yeah, I don't know exactly what was in their mindsets of setting this fight up, but I was willing to take it. There's a lot of scary dudes that they could have matched me up with that I would have said yes to as well. But and I'm not saying that Fernando doesn't have the ability to beat me in any sense of the word, and that he's not scary. But yeah, it is a little weird. It's my 13th UFC fight. It's his debut. He's had a 2-year layoff as well. But I think stylistically and just kind of like size wise, I think it's a good match. Or I think it's good by the matchmakers to set this up because it'll be fun to watch two long, lanky guys, go in there and try to beat each other up. And I think Fernando brings that, that tough Mexican spirit, fighting style. And so I think he's willing to stand and trade with me, and that's exactly what I want to do as well. So I think this fight takes the majority place on the feet. So I think it'll be a fun one for everybody to watch, and it'll be a fun one for us to participate in.
How familiar were you with him? Like, if you look at like the guys he's lost to, like they are UFC vets, like Spike and obviously Dan Ige, who I know, you train with sometimes. So, like, how familiar were you with Fernando then?
Well, actually, about 4.5, 5 years ago, a group of us from Vegas, we went down to Orange County and trained. I actually trained with Fernando. So I knew who he was. One of my coaches, Casey Halstead, had cornered him before. I actually cornered him against Danny Ige a long time ago, and so I was pretty familiar with Fernando in that sense. But yeah, it was kind of a random matchup. Like I wasn't expecting, obviously him specifically because it's his debut. I didn't even know if he was in the UFC. But turns out that he got signed, a couple years ago and hasn't fought since. So that's interesting as well, in its own right. That he hasn't fought, it'll basically almost 2 years when we fight that it'll be since his last fight. And so that's I'm curious on that, but I'm not gonna dive too far into that. I mean, he maybe has his reasons, maybe for whatever reason, maybe he got injured or something, but I think that'll be interesting too to see how he performs off a 2-year layoff and for it to be his UFC debut. That can add a little bit more stress and nervousness to on his end.
Wait, you cornered him or one of your coaches cornered
One of
him?
my coaches did. One of my
Okay.
coaches cornered against him, or no,
Okay.
cornered him against Danny Gay. So Casey Halstead was in Fernando's corner against Danny Gay.
Then like, is it hard to prepare for this guy? Like, he hasn't fought since May of 2021. Like, that's a long time to be in the gym. Like, can change his style, can learn a lot of new things. Like, does that make it difficult to prepare for him?
Not necessarily. I think people's like kind of styles kind of stay the same. I mean, there's definitely things he could add to his arsenal for sure. I mean, if you're in the gym training, you should be doing that on a regular basis. But I watched his last couple of fights. I feel like that's how he's going to be. There's only so much you can change, and only so many things you would want to change. I mean, he's been pretty successful with his abilities and his styles and his skill set. So I think he's gonna, kind of keep it in that same realm. It's not like I'm gonna go in there and he's gonna, fight me like a D1 wrestler. I don't see that kind of thing happening or like that drastic of a change happening. I feel like I'm gonna see the Fernandos that I've seen in his most recent fights.
How do you think you match up against him? Like, he is obviously a primarily striker. Like, we've seen you pull out the wrestling when you need it. I know you always like to stand and have these fun fights. Like, how do you kind of see yourself matching up against him?
Yeah, I think it's I think I match up pretty well with him. I mean, we're both long, lanky guys. Uh, but what I have seen is his inability to kind of push past getting tired and gassing out a little bit. A couple fights ago, he fought a short kind of striker kid, but and he was doing well. He did well in the first half of the fight, but he really started to fade in the third round, and so and I'm kind of the opposite of that. Like I sometimes start a little slow, but as the fight goes longer, I feel like I get better, and so I feel like, and he likes to stand and trade, and I'm I'm in the same boat as him, so I feel like the majority of the fight is going to take place on the feet, and I feel like if I can drag him into the third round, I can get him really tired, and I can get like a finish, like a TKO or a KO finish in the third. Obviously, his jiu-jitsu is pretty good. He's got a lot of submissions off his back, so I'm not necessarily going to try to like double leg him and play in his guard because he's really he's got a lot of flexibility. He's kind of a Gumby off his back. So if I do take him down, I'm going to be very very adamant to get out of his guard and not mess around too much where he's the best at.
How disappointed, frustrated, don't really know the right word, that's just at the Apex again.
Oh, I love it. The Apex
I thought you just, I know you like fighting in Vegas. I just thought you would have liked the fans.
Yeah, I mean, either way, it's all good with me. I've been at the Apex so many damn times that it's like second nature to me to be there. And so, I mean, even when I fought Caceres at the Apex, just everything about it was so just routine for me that like I just had no nerves. Like I just felt so good. I felt so confident and comfortable in that fight. Right before he had knocked me out, he had hit me with something like a left hook, or I mean, for him it was a right hook. But nothing that like it didn't hurt me or anything. But it was like he had hit me with it, and it was just really early on. And I looked at him and I kind of gave him that yeah, and I kind of like smiled at him, and I felt like I was really comfortable at that point. And usually it takes a little bit longer for me to get into that mindset of being that comfortable. But just the whole leading into that fight, like being at the Apex, everything, I've been there a million times, and the weight cut was there, the face offs, everything is just so I'm so used to it that I was just so comfortable early on. So I don't mind if it's at the Apex. The Apex is like it's like my backyard.
How do you kind of see this one playing out? Like, I think fans are pretty well known. Like, it's someone's getting finished or it's a fight of the night kind of bonus. Like, how do you kind of see it playing out?
That's really what I want. I mean, obviously we want to go in there and I want to get in and out as quick and easy as possible. But I really, really down deep, I really want just like an all-out 15 minutes brawl because it's fun. I mean, I enjoy that. Like, I really, truly enjoy fighting and fighting at those times when you're tired and you're really trying to see who the biggest dog is. I mean, one of my favorite fights was obviously me versus Steven Peterson. because that brought the dog out of both of us. And so that's truly what I would love to happen. But obviously, if I got in there and I touched him on his nose and he fell over, that's that's ideal as well. You want to get in and out. Yeah, we don't get paid for by the hour. We get paid per fight. So and we get paid to win. So like if you can get in there and win as quick and easy as possible, that's the best way to go about it. But from a fan's point of view and from me wanting to be exciting for the fans, I would love to have a long drawn out brawl.
I'm not sure your thoughts. Like, I was kind of looking at it, like, is this like is this kind of like a lose fight? Like, obviously you make money and it's like fighting, but like, say you go out there lose to him, like people are gonna be like, oh, you lost a guy making his debut, or you beat him, and say you do finish him early, everyone's like, oh, Julian just beat a guy making his debut. Like, what's that really do for him in the division?
No, I mean, man, if I was gonna let what people say, get me down or up, or justify my emotions because of what people say and how they act, then I would drive myself crazy. I mean, man, I posted a reel the other day of me knocking out Nate Landwehr, and somebody had posted, oh, if you fought him again, you'd be asleep. It's like these things, like I can't let that get me down. It's like, who's that guy? Like, who's that guy to say that? Like, that guy's probably his Instagram probably has no pictures of himself. It's just probably a burner account of some guy just talking shit. Some overweight dude down in the basement that has nothing to really strive for as an athlete himself. Or I mean, maybe not. Who knows? I just can't really see an actual athlete saying those words as another athlete, regardless of how they feel about it. But yeah, I mean, man, if I go out there and I beat if I beat Fernando and people talk shit about it, or if I lose to Fernando, they talk shit about it. What else is different? I mean, people talk shit all the time. That's the modern age that we live in now. And so I love it. Yeah, I love the fight, man. I don't care if it's a debuter or if it's the champion, man. I just want to go out there and enjoy what I do and enjoy the ride.
What is kind of the goal then for you this year?
Just stay busy. I just want to stay busy, healthy. I've been so lucky, man, with like injuries and being able to stay healthy. Like, I don't know if it's just body in motion stays in motion. I just continuously train in and out of camps, and I'm always doing something. I'm always like super active. And so I don't know if that's been attributed to me not getting injured, but whatever it is, I got to find some wood and knock on it a bunch, because I just have been so lucky in that sense. And so as long as I'm healthy, I just want to fight as much as possible. And I really don't care who it is. And I want to fight in the UFC. So if I can get stay as busy as possible in the UFC, that's what I'm looking for.
Oh, what do you think a win does here? Like, do you care about like getting these ranked guys like obviously Caceres was, or is it just more kind of staying busy, like you said?
Yeah, just staying busy. I mean, obviously, if you start winning fights, I mean, like the 3 fights that I had in a row right before Caceres, you got to do something with me at that point. Like, I'm starting to look good against really tough opponents, and then to beat Dawodu the way I did, you got to put me up against someone in the top 15 like they did, and I agree with that 100%. But I mean, obviously, if I beat Fernando, like you said, it's like not like, oh, you fight a top 10 after that. It's like they might just set me up with someone maybe a little bit more experienced in the UFC or something. But I don't even care, man. It could be a debuter, it could be the champion, or anybody in between. I'm down for it all. I just want to go in there and have a good time.
Just 2 more things. Like, I didn't even like when I was looking at your record and stuff. Like, I didn't realize like 40 fights is like the next one for you. Like, obviously, if you include Tough, which probably should count, like you're way past 40. But like, is there ever a thought of like how much longer you got doing this? Is like you're still only 33, and like it's pretty soon. Like 50 fights could be like 2 years away for how often you fight.
Yeah, it's so wild because I'll like look at people's records that are in the UFC, and I'm just like it feels so low to me, because even for me, like having as many fights as I do, I still get nervous and I still like deal with some of that stuff. But like I can't imagine with some of these guys that only have like a handful of fights and like make their UFC debut. But it's a different age that we're living in. These guys are training 5, 6, 7 years before they even have their MMA debut period. So I think it's just a different age that we're in. I'm still I'm kind of right in between a little bit of the old school way and the new school. And I just was fighting and fighting and fighting and fighting, like right after I started training. Like I started training and I fought like 3 months after I stepped into a gym and had 10 amateur fights in a year and a half, and then just started fighting professionally. Had 6 pro fights my first year, and it was just piling them on. And that's something I'm a bit proud of, just how many fights I've had, because a lot of people are like, holy shit, you have so many fights. But it just shows that I've been around the block and I've mixed it up with a lot of guys. I mean, I fought Patty over in London, fought a lot of guys in and out of the UFC. This will be my 13th UFC fight, so that in itself, to get to over 10 UFC fights is difficult for anybody. And so just the fact that I kind of broke that barrier, and obviously from before I was 1-4 in the UFC. Now I'm 6-6. So just to be able to turn that record around a bit has helped. Or it's just been something I've been proud of for myself to do. Because there was a time when I thought I was never going to fight in the UFC again. So I don't really care about all the other fights. It was just to go out in the UFC and be able to perform at least one time and do what I know I could do. That was what I really wanted to do, and I was able to do that, and many have done it a handful of times. So, but yeah, I mean, I would like to have 100 fights if I could, but we'll see. As the years go by, my wife won't want me fighting when I'm 40, so we'll see. We'll see what happens. Luckily, like I said, if I can stay healthy and just stay consistent, that's all I'm looking for.
Just last thing, like obviously Steven Peterson retired after his last fight. Like for you, is that still like one of your most favorite fights of your career? Like obviously how exciting it was, and then kind of everything that came with it, making like 5 or 6 checks or whatever you said it was.
Yeah. You know what? It's kind of funny is like the other day, I got another check from that fight. I guess some like NFT, because the UFC will send me payments or whatever. Like every year you get royalties from like people buying your sweaters or like whatever, anything with your name on it. And usually it's like a couple $100, but I got a pretty substantial check this year, and it said it was for an NFT of last year in February, and I fought Peterson February 5th, so I think it had something to do with that. And so there was another check that I had no idea about, so that was pretty awesome in that sense. But yeah, man, that's gonna be one of those fights forever that I'm always gonna remember, and it's always gonna be one of my favorite ones because it was just like it really encompassed everything that I want to be as a fighter. I want to be known for just having the dog in me, and that was a fight that was difficult for me as well. I had to push really hard, and I know he had to as well. And he had me hurt at one point in that fight where that I had to really readjust and figure it out. And luckily, I was able to hit him with that spinning back fist at the most perfect time when I was hurt. So yeah, it was one of those things I'll never forget.
Well, Julian, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this.
Of course, Cole. Thank you so much.
All right, we're jumping UFC middleweight Cody Brundage, who's back in action here pretty soon. Cody, how's it going, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, obviously, it's a fight we talked about last year, and then what? Like, I think the Monday or Tuesday of fight week, it gets canceled. So, like, how happy are you to kind of get this one back then?
I'm happy about it. As soon as it got canceled, I reached out to Rodolfo and was like, hey, man, hope you're okay. Hope you have a good recovery. I was upset. Obviously, you put in a long training camp, but I don't think, I wasn't mad at him. It's not anything he can really control. And so to get it back is definitely good. I feel like this time it's not as built up in my head, which maybe that's not a good thing. Maybe it should be. But before it was like a bigger, it seemed bigger to me. It seems less big now. And yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to it. I liked the fight when I got it in. Well, I was supposed to be in November, but I got the news obviously before that. And now I feel like I've improved a lot more even from then. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it.
And then obviously in between, you kind of took that short notice fight against Oleksiejczuk, like didn't go your way. Like, what do you take away from that? Because that was kind of a weird one. Like, you go from not fighting, and then you got to ramp back up a couple weeks later to take on Oleksiejczuk.
Yeah, I think it was a smart decision. I think matchup wise, it was a good matchup. Unfortunately, my best effort just wasn't enough that night. And I didn't think it was my best performance I could have given, but that night it was. And sometimes that's just how it works in this sport. And hats off to Michael. I knew he was a tough dude. I was cage side when he fought my teammate Dustin Jacoby. I knew what I was getting myself into. I knew where his strengths were. I just felt like I still do feel like matchup wise, it's not a bad matchup for me. But yeah, it's weird too. Like I guess trying to ramp back up, but I don't really think that played too much of a role into it. I felt good. I felt really good going into the fight. Just wasn't my night.
And then with this one, like I know when we talked before November, we kind of talked about how Adolfo's had a hard time getting to the octagon, and then obviously he didn't get there. Like, was that a worry of accepting this fight, of like going through another training camp and then maybe he doesn't make it there again?
Yeah, absolutely. It definitely was. I wasn't like super pumped to say yes again. It had nothing to do with the matchup. I like the matchup. I've said yes. Like I said yes before. I feel like I'm a better fighter now. So had nothing to do with the matchup. Just kind of had to do with, last time no one really talks about how like, okay, this guy pulled out and all the expenses I had from that fight camp, they build up and then you don't get the pay of the fight.
Mm-hmm.
So then you just owe people money and that's not a good spot to be in. And so, yeah, that's definitely something that, I'm not anticipating will happen, but it is definitely in the back of your mind. And, it is what it is though. I can't control that. If he pulls out, I hope the UFC just takes care of me, which, I expect they will. So, yeah, it definitely was something I thought about before saying yes again, but, it is what it is.
Did that play a role in you taking that Oleksiejczuk fight then? Is just kind of like getting money and like after going through a whole camp and then not getting that paycheck you're supposed to?
Yeah, the pay definitely wasn't bad, but I told myself and my coaches a long time ago that, I'd be financially responsible enough that I would never have to take a fight just for a paycheck. I really truly did feel like it was a good matchup.
Mm-hmm.
And the benefit of also getting paid was definitely not a bad thing, but on paper I was like, man, I can out wrestle this kid. Where he's weak, I'm very strong, and it was going well for me in the beginning, and it just didn't work out. But I wouldn't say that was a determining factor. It was definitely something that was nice to get a paycheck, but no, I took that fight because I felt like stylistically it was a good matchup for me, and it was a good way to push myself up the rankings. I win that fight. You basically just switch me, and we're on the same card for this next fight. You basically just switch me and him, and that fight's basically for like a top 15 spot. So I felt like it was a smart decision. I didn't mind the matchup, and didn't work out, but I'd probably do it again if I could go back and have whatever happen.
And then a fairly quick turnaround, like 4 months, roughly like 4 and a bit, like 4.5 months. Like, was this about the right time frame for you after that one?
Yeah, that, I kind of want to stay that active. My wife, we're pregnant again, have a little girl due in July. So, I honestly would have liked to fight sooner even and try to get 2 in before the baby gets here. I think I'm gonna be pushing it, now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to try to stay ready. But yeah, hopefully you can go get the job done. And then you probably won't see me again until, unless I slide in on something short notice, you won't see me again until October. So, quick turnaround now, but I just kind of anticipating a little bit of a longer layoff.
Well, congrats on that. Like maybe a 50K bonus might help
Yeah.
or something if you don't get that second fight in.
Yeah, that'd be great, man. If I get the 50K bonus, then I don't got to worry about it too much.
I know obviously most contracts run 4 fights. You already had 4 fights. I imagine, I don't really remember. Did you I think you re-signed before that, taking that Oleksiejczuk fight, right? And they got
so that Oleksiejczuk was my first fight on my new contract. So I got 3 more fights on that deal, and then hopefully win a few and not have to fight it out. That's always the goal, is to re-sign before you fight the contract out. So win these next couple and do it in impressive fashion, and hopefully we're on a new deal again.
And then obviously it isn't a whole lot, like a whole time frame like difference from when you're supposed to fight him. So like, does anything like game plan wise change, or is it pretty similar to what you had when you're supposed to fight him in November?
I think we just added some more tools. Gave me a little bit of time to improve some things that we had already been working, and feel more confident to use. But it's not a huge difference. Obviously we know where he's very, very good at. I think everyone does. So it's just kind of not even avoiding those spots. It's just being intelligent when we do engage, because I'm a very high level grappler myself. So I don't want to like negate things that I'm really good at just because he is as well, if that makes sense. It's just being intelligent with how you enter those positions and just kind of game planning for that. But I wouldn't say a ton changes, just adding a few more tools and sharpening some things up.
That was kind of my next question was like, we've seen guys fight him like Chris Curtis that had zero interest going to the mat and just like stuff every takedowns. We've seen some guys like Anthony Hernandez be fine going down to the ground with them. Like, so how do you kind of determine like when or if you even want to go down to the ground with him?
I think a lot of it just depends, how it's going on the feet. If I'm having my way with him on the feet, then I don't think the wrestling is going to be something I'm looking for. But a lot of it also just depends on what he's doing. If he's really pushing the wrestling, what I've seen is when he pushes super hard wrestling, he just doesn't have the cardio to sustain that. So, jiu-jitsu, striking, anything's way different when you're tired. So if he comes out and exhausts himself trying to take me down, I think I'm hard to take down. If you watch that Nick Maximov fight, yes, he got a lot of takedowns. I don't think he took me down one time that wasn't on the cage. If we were talking about open mat wrestling, I stuffed every single one of his takedowns. I think he's a lot more credentialed of a wrestler than Hidalgo, and so I feel like he'll have a hard time getting me to the ground. And that Hernandez fight, the reason he got tired is because he came out like an absolute psychopath and just shot for his life over and over and over again. By the second round, he couldn't sustain it. And I think he's learned from that. You saw in the Curtis fight, he didn't shoot any takedowns. I don't think, maybe one in the first round, but he definitely was like biding his time with the takedowns. Same with the Dustin Stolfus fight. After he kind of gassed himself out and realized like, hey, if I don't get him down and I do that, I'm going to be in trouble. You saw a change in kind of his approach. And I anticipate he'll come out and kind of point fight a little bit. I don't think he's going to be heavy wrestling until a little bit later, maybe. But if I can get him tired, I think that's where you look for the wrestling. When some sweat's built up and some fatigue is built up, that's where you look for your own grappling. But like I said, it just depends. It depends on how it's going on the feet. Depends, if I get rocked or something like that, there's no telling. So it just, I just will not be intimidated or afraid to wrestle. He has like 100% takedown defense, and I always laugh at that stat because I'm like, yeah, because no one's ever shot a takedown on him. So I don't think he expects people to wrestle him, and being able to add that to your game just creates more opportunity for your striking, more opportunity to kind of have success in other areas, I think.
How much like of it is gonna be like you kind of dictating the pace? Like we saw when like Anthony was like making him fight a fast-paced fight, like we saw him gas out and like Anthony kind of took advantage. And then when we've kind of seen Adolfo go late into fights and have success, like he's kind of the one, like he's not pushing a fast pace because like if he's pushing a fast pace, like it's hard for anyone to kind of go 15 minutes like that. So like how kind of important is that for you to be the one kind of dictating the pace in this one?
Yeah, I think that's huge. I think dictating pace and pressure and putting him on the back foot. I'm fortunate. I train with Anthony Smith and Dustin Jacoby and guys who just beat my ass constantly. And so I've gotten used to being able to fight as the hammer and the nail. And I feel like Hidalgo does a really good job when he's the hammer, but he has no idea how to fight when he's the nail a little bit. And so it's just making sure that, for not for 15 minutes, but for the majority of the fight, I'm dictating pace. I'm dictating the pressure. I'm putting him on the back foot. I'm dictating like where the fight's happening, whether it's on the feet, on the ground, whatever. So, yeah, I think that's huge. I think that's a huge aspect. And I think that's a huge aspect in any fight. Typically you see the guy that's going forward and is able to pressure and keep the higher pace is going to be the winner. And especially in a case where a guy has maybe a little bit of suspect cardio. So, I anticipate pushing the pace is going to be super important. And one thing that is tough and something that I struggle with is when I go with someone who pushes a slower pace, I feel like sometimes I match that pace. You get into like this mirror type of thing. And so it's just, that's part of the thing we've been doing in camp is just push the pace, make sure you're the one dictating. Don't fall into this, almost like complacency when you're going. And so, that's something I've really been working on. And I feel good about the work we've put in there for sure.
And then what's it kind of like in the gym right now? Like within like a month span, like you guys basically have the whole gym going. Like UFC Kansas City is basically a factory fight night. Like how many guys you guys are on it, and then you're obviously going. Then Anthony's going like what 2 weeks after you. Like you have the majority of guys kind of going in that 4 or 5 week stretch.
Yeah, it's been really good, man. Having all the big guys there. Zach Cummins is having his retirement fight in Kansas City. He's in town training. Anthony Smith, like you mentioned, he's fighting 2 weeks after me. Dustin's fighting on the Kansas City card. Rob Wilkinson just fought in PFL. So having all the big guys, and that's not even counting, like there's a Fury card coming to Denver, and there's like 10 of our guys on there. So like the weekend of the 15th, we have like 15 fights for Factory X, which is just, it's going to be a wild weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun, but it's really good, man. High vibes. Like everybody's feeling really good. Everybody's peaking around the same time. So it's definitely good energy in the gym and fun to be a part of.
How do you kind of see this one playing out then?
Honestly, like I said, I don't anticipate him pushing wrestling early. I think he'll kind of come out. He kind of has that new like karate style that he's been working on, and he has a good 1-2 and a good outside leg kick. I see him like point fighting a little bit, trying to keep the range. But I do think like he fatigue. That's not his game. His anxiety goes a little bit. He gets his nervous system up when he gets hit, and that's going to force the wrestling. As he starts to force the wrestling, fatigue sets in. And when I watch that, Chris Curtis is an amazing striker, phenomenal striker. I know he was dealing with some hand problems kind of going into that fight, and he really wasn't letting loose to crack Hidalgo, I don't think. Could be wrong, but to me, it didn't look like he was really putting too much behind his shots, like really working the body, doing smart, clean boxing, but not really trying to hurt him. And I say not trying to hurt him. Of course he's trying to hurt him, but you know what I'm saying? He wasn't like really overcommitting, and not that I'm going to overcommit, but I feel like my wrestling defense is high level, and I don't mind getting in a wrestling exchange with Hidalgo. And I think if I could I think I have the power advantage. I think I have the speed advantage. I think I have the wrestling advantage. I think if this was a straight jiu-jitsu match, we might be in some trouble, but it's an MMA fight, and I feel like I have more ways to win the fight than Hidalgo does. I'm a finisher. He's a finisher. I don't see it going the distance. Honestly, I think I get him out of there late second, early third. I do think it goes later than 1 because I think there's going to be a feeling out process. But I do think I get the finish. TKO. I don't think I'm going to sub him. I don't think he's going to overexhaust himself so much that he taps from exhaustion, which is kind of how I feel like that Hernandez fight went. He just was like couldn't breathe. I don't think he'll put himself in that position, but I do think I catch him. I have pretty good timing. I have good power. I think I catch him, especially as he starts to fatigue. So, but I think it'll be a good fight. I think it'll be super entertaining. We're on the main card again, I think I saw, so that's exciting. Yeah, I'm excited for it, man. I'm at a really, really, everyone's always like, it's the best camp of my life every fight. I don't think I'll say that, but I'm at a really good place in my life just with my family and things I have going on and the training that we did for this. I feel really confident in the work we put in, and it'll be good to get that taste out of my mouth of that last fight, which I feel like wasn't a good performance. So yeah, I feel good.
Just 2 more things. Bit disappointed just at the Apex again. Like it seems like you can't get out of there.
Yeah, it's definitely disappointing. I feel like when I get on the mic, they're like, who do you want to fight next? I'm like, I don't care who I fight next. Just get me the hell out of here. Let me fight in front of fans. But, it is what it is. And there's benefits to the Apex. It's easy. I've done it before. You kind of get into a routine. I just kind of wish that like my wife could come to the fight, or, I could get a couple tickets for some friends that come into town. But it is what it is. I know they're talking about opening up more, so it'll be interesting to see where they start going. And hopefully the next one won't be at the Apex.
And just final thing, like you said, with obviously your daughter coming, like probably not till October. So like, does that kind of make it hard to kind of think of who's next? Because obviously the division could change quite a bit to then.
Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of good matchups out there for me, especially with a win. I was joking. If I go beat Hidalgo, right? If I finish Hidalgo, then I should just call it Bo Nickel. And then when I beat Bo Nickel, I can be the best grappler. I beat the best wrestler and the best jiu-jitsu guy, right? I'd have a pretty good claim. So, no, I don't know. There's a lot of good matchups. There's guys that are young. I feel like 85 is a pretty young division. You don't see a ton of older dudes. So that basically, there's a lot of good people that could be good matchups. So just kind of keep my ear close to the ground, and if I don't slide in on something short notice, then just see how some things play out. And I'm not going to be fighting, probably just trying to help out with my wife and things, but I'll still be training like I was fighting. So I'll be ready when something pops up for sure.
Well, Cody, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
Yeah, thanks, brother. You're the man.
All right, we're jumping UFC bantamweight Journey Newson, who's back in action on April 29th. Journey, how's it going, man?
Good. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Like, obviously, last fight against Sergey, very close fight in December. Like, was this about the right time frame for you to return? About what, 4.5 months later?
Yes, I'd say that's the normal return. There's no injuries that took place in that fight. I didn't take any damage, so yeah, this is as early as it can get.
What did you take away from that fight? Because obviously you were a big underdog. Like, a lot of people were counting you out, and like you put up a really good fight. And it was a very competitive and close fight.
The wrestling. I mean, dude's good at holding guys on that cage or holding them down. These wrestlers are coming out of nowhere, so that was the main thing I took from it.
Was it frustrating to that like there was basically him just holding you, and there wasn't a whole lot of like damage or anything happening?
It kind of frustrated me that the judges gave it to him. I get the octagon control, I guess, but I mean, if guys are gonna get away with that, then what's the point of not everyone just going towards that game plan of just resting on top and not really putting on exciting fights like that. So I was kind of bummed out that they gave him the edge. It wasn't even split, it was unanimous. So it kind of bummed me out.
And then after that fight, like, did you really know what was going to be next for you, or like, obviously fighting Brian Keller now? Like, was that when you won, or was it just kind of whoever they gave you?
It was basically whoever they gave me.
And with Brian, like, this is obviously a veteran. Like, this will be his 16th UFC fights. How kind of happy are you to get a guy like him?
Yeah, he's been here for a while. Dude has, like you said, 16 fights inside the UFC. That's it's not including outside the UFC. So I mean, I'm definitely not looking past him, and I'm pretty sure he looked at that last fight and saw the holes that I've been working on, and I assume he's going to try to exploit those holes, and I'm trying to fill those holes this whole fight camp.
What have you made of his run? Like, obviously he lost back-to-back fights, but he lost Mario Bautista and Umar Nurmagomedov. Like, both those guys are very good, and like the guys he loses to, like Brugge Simone, Cody Stamen, like Montel Jackson, like it's all pretty top guys.
Yeah, those are pretty top guys. So I'm always looking for a finish. If the decision comes, that's good too. But he's a tough dude that I'm not looking past, and if I get that win, that's a big notch on my side.
How much do you expect him to just try to wrestle you and just kind of make this like a similar fight to your last one?
I'm gonna go 50-50. He might want to keep it standing. His hands are good. Like he shouldn't be. I assume that he's gonna be weary with throwing with me. I mean, with Sergey, every time I try to exchange, he wasn't having any of it. So Kellenhurst, his striking's pretty good. But I'm at 50-50 if he's gonna try to exploit my jits or wrestling.
And I know whenever Brian fights, he always likes to put on exciting fights too. Which does that kind of add some excitement where it probably won't be a boring one like your last one?
Yeah, this is I'm looking at 2023 as new year. I want to kind of put more risk into my fights, and he's an exciting fight, so this could be a potential banger.
And then back at the Apex, is that disappointing for you?
It's always disappointing because I like to travel. So
Yeah.
the fact that I got to go to Vegas again, I mean, the PI's there, which is awesome. Like, that's probably the best thing I'm getting out of it is the PI's out there. The last weight cut that we had was the best one that we ever had. And, I'm not just saying that. Now I know what guys are talking about when they say, oh, it's the best weight cut I ever had. Like, now I kind of get that. Last cut was good, and I felt good all 3 rounds. I'm kind of bummed because I could have put more out there. That's why I kind of want to put a little bit more risk out there for 2023 because I had, a little bit more left in my tank. So, yeah, I am kind of bummed that it's in Vegas, but at the same time, it is what it is.
Does that last fight like give you some confidence though that like you can go 15 hard minutes and like you don't have to worry about kind of gassing out then?
Yeah. I've always known my conditioning's been pretty normal, pretty well. But like I said, like I don't put enough risk in my fights, and I'm hoping to make that change this year.
Is that something you just think like mentally like that it's just like you've always like not been able to do it, or like why do you think you just haven't been able to put the rest in?
It's a mental thing and just a safety precaution. I mean, everyone's dangerous, if your hands are down or if your hands are not where they're supposed to be, So, given that, I mean, my hands are pretty much up most of the time. You know, when I throw my shots, most of them get in, but sometimes I feel like I don't throw enough when I should be throwing a lot more output or you know, going to the ground, getting my own takedowns if I wanted to and stuff like that. So like, but I'm always aware of like the risk factor in doing those certain things, you know, and getting caught or something like that, or getting put on the ground and getting submitted, you know, out of nowhere because I made one foul mistake. So this year, this fight, like I'm trying to put more risk into these fights.
And then with Brian, like he's a shorter like bantamweight, like you have like I think it was 2 or 3 inch reach advantage on him. Like, how do you think that plays a role in the fight?
Definitely plays a role in my favor. With Sergey, it was the same thing. I just felt like he kept running from me a little bit. And I have been working on my distance control with striking. So, you know, whichever way Kelleher wants to go, if he wants to, you know, box me, uh, you know, chin to chin, or if he's going to back out, I'm going to be ready for both.
How do you kind of see it playing out then?
I want to say it's gonna start stand up for sure. His game plan might be going to the ground, and if that's his game plan, I'm ready for that too.
With Brian too, like we've seen him be submitted. Like he is a pretty durable guy when it comes to like strikes. So, like, do you think if it is a finish, like will be something, you think you will be able to knock him out?
I definitely have the potential to knock him out for sure. The fact that I have an inch or two reach advantage, that definitely puts him in range to get knocked out.
What do you think a win over Brian does for you? Like we kind of talked about earlier, like you look at the guys that beat him are like top 15, top kind of 25 guys in the division. Like he beats a lot of those guys that aren't that. So like what do you think a win does for you here?
It definitely, you know, puts me up a little bit more in the ranks. Like you said, with him, he's on a 2-fight losing streak, so that's why I assume UFC offered him to me. I'm on a 1-fight losing streak, and this is still like my second contract in the UFC, so I'm still trying to get my footing in here. And they're, you know, giving me, you know, vets and stuff. So like a win off of him, it would be pretty cool.
And then like what is kind of the goal then for you this year? Like you beat Brian, like it kind of sets you up, especially if you go out there and do knock him out, like it sets you up to have a big year.
It does set me up to have a big year. I want to say we're just going to look at this fight first, see what the outcome is, and we get a win. Best case scenario, we get a knockout. We could probably start calling people out, maybe.
And then just 2 more things. Like you mentioned how you said like last weight cut was the easiest one because of the PI. Like, has there been a thought of like trying to add a bit of size or add more muscle then? Or like, do you just kind of want to keep it like that smooth and not have to worry about having these hard cuts?
Yeah. The last time was perfect. I'm gonna hope that we do it again. This time around, my water intake's gonna, you know, start this week, and I mean, we've kind of debated about going to 25, but that's such a. I'm already, you know, kind of dying at. I'm already kind of dying at 35, so I'm like, do I really want to cut another 10 pounds, or you know, going up to 45? Those guys are a little bit more bigger. I mean, I have a pretty big frame, but I think 35 is where I'm comfortable at. I'm comfortable cutting that type of weight now, especially now that, you know, we have the UFC PI and those people helping us out there getting these weight cuts pretty easily.
Have you talked to the PI? Like, have they talked about 25, or that's just something like your coaches and stuff talked about?
We've did some tests at the PI, I think maybe last year, about where I would fit in at the 25 division, and after the test, they said that I would lose like some conditioning and some strength, which is normal. So it's always the heads or tails. I know like that weight cut would probably suck unless I lived out there. Like if I lived in Vegas, and I was by the PI, going to the PI every day, it could probably be not bad of a cut, doable. But with me out here in Oregon, yeah, I don't see that happening.
And just last thing, next time you fight though, has to be in front of a crowd. The way you fight, like a lot of your fights are all, except obviously the last one that wasn't because of you. Like most of your fights are always exciting. Like I feel like your next one has to be in front of fans.
Hopefully, yeah. Hopefully they'll get me out of Vegas. Potential win will definitely up that opportunity to go fight somewhere else. So, crossing fingers here.
Well, Journey, I appreciate the time as always. Thank you so much for doing this again.
All right, thanks, Cole. Have a good day.
All right, we're joined by UFC lightweight Natan Levy, who's back in action on April 29th. Natan, how's it going, man?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Obviously coming off 2 straight wins, like fought back in December, like about 5 months roughly since you lost one, like 4.5, 5 months. Like, was this about the right time frame for you to return then?
Yeah, that's a good time frame. I wish it could have been sooner, but that's the fight I got offered, so I just took it. I wasn't gonna, ask for an earlier fight, and if they offer me a fight, I take it.
And then going back to the Apex, like, is that a bit disappointing after you experienced that crowd atmosphere in your last one?
Yeah, that's pretty disappointing. Yeah, the only thing I wish I could change is having a crowd. That was, an amazing experience. I haven't fought in front of a crowd since 2019. So, I kind of forgot what it feels like, but it gives you so much energy. It's so cool. It's so much fun. So, yeah, I wish. But the next one will be.
And then fighting Pete Rodriguez, like, did this surprise you just because obviously he's won one of the UFC in both those fights? We're at 170.
It doesn't surprise me, if he's coming down, he's a lightweight now, hoping he makes the weight. I'm 2-1, he's 1-1. Those are, similar records inside the UFC, so sounds like a good matchup to me.
What have you made of his 2 fights? Like, it's kind of weird who he's fought. Like, obviously, we fought Jack Della, who is like a top 15, top 10 welterweight on short notice. And then obviously he takes on Mike Jackson, who was cut from the UFC after that. So, like, both his fights were kind of lopsided, and like obviously he beat Mike rather quickly, and then Jack beat him rather quickly. It's like, how much do you take away from those fights? Because like both of them weren't really close in either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's a kill or be killed type of fighter, and most of the time he's gone out there and killed his opponent. First round KOs, a bunch of them. So it's definitely dangerous, especially in the beginning of the fight. But it's hard to judge against Jack because he's a top 15, top 10 welterweight right now. So I do feel like looking at it without trying to judge too much how he fought against this guy and that guy, just looking at his skill set. I know he's very, very dangerous. I know he's very tough, but I also feel like I have the skills to beat him. I've proven that I can win a dogfight, and I can win, and I can also outskill my opponents. So I'm not really scared wherever the fight goes. I'm confident.
His pro career, like all his fights have ended in the first round. Like his longest fight is that Jack Della fight that went like 3 minutes. So like, how much like is part of the game plan then just trying to extend him and like see what his cardio is like because it's never been tested?
I wouldn't mind testing his cardio, but I can definitely see it also ending in round 1. All these guys he beat in round 1, they weren't me, and that's for damn sure. And when you go out there and really go for the kill that bad, yeah, it makes you dangerous, but it also makes you very vulnerable. So I can definitely, if he comes out with that same intensity and that same aggressiveness, it is dangerous, but I can also see myself, countering him and knocking him out.
Do you have to fight any differently in that opening round with like how aggressive and like he comes out like looking for that finish like right away?
I feel like most people I fight kind of take that route. They know they can't outstrike me. They can't outgrapple me. So they try and just make it dirty and messy and hit some strikes from making chaos. They want to create chaos, and they think this is where, their opportunity lies. But I can deal with chaos too, and I've proven that.
How important do you think the wrestling will be in this one? Obviously, he's a very dangerous striker. Like, he likes standing up. Like, he doesn't, like, none of his fights really do hit the ground. It's like, how important do you think your wrestling will be in this one?
Wrestling is always very important. I wouldn't mind putting him on his back and elbowing him and putting my weight on him. But I haven't really seen his wrestling too much. So maybe he's a very high level wrestler that nobody can take down. So, I would have to stand and bang with him. Like every fight, it's everything can happen. I'm pretty much ready for everything. I believe I'm the better grappler, better striker. I'll find, his weaknesses in the moment. I'll feel him. I'll feel his strength. I'll feel his speed. And then I'll make some decisions. There's a game plan, but it's very open to whatever happens. It's not, just plan A, plan A, plan A. And if B happens, then we don't have anything. It's more like, a tree with branches, and whatever happens, I have a plan there.
How do you think Pete will, like, cardio and everything will fare with the weight cut? Like, I was just checking, like, he's never fought at 55 before. Like, all his pro career has been at 70 or 75. Like, in an amateur, he fought at 85, mostly probably just because he didn't want to cut weight as amateur. But, like, this is his first time cutting down to 55. Like, how do you think that his chin and cardio will fare then, cutting that extra 15 pounds?
Yeah, I think he even fought at 205 once.
Mm-hmm.
I think he's trying to get an advantage of size and strength. But I know from cutting down to 45 for many of my fights, when you cut too much, it hurts your performance. And your chin gets, weaker. Your body gets weaker. Your cardio, your gas tank gets smaller. So I think he's going to feel it.
And then how much confidence will you get, like, say this fight goes past that first round, like, where with him, like, that's kind of uncharted territory. Do you think the longer the fight goes, like, the better it is for you?
How much what? Sorry.
Like, do you think the longer the fight goes, the better it is for you, just because Pete is kind of that first rounder bust kind of guy?
Yeah, I feel like I have the more experience. I went 15 minutes a bunch of times. I feel that's a good thing. I also got some quick finishes, but you don't get that experience from those quick finishes. You get the experience from being in the cage for 15 minutes and fighting it out. And I think I've seen and I've been to places in the cage that he hasn't been. So I definitely would love to bring into that deep water.
The smaller octagon at the Apex, how do you think that plays a role in the fight?
I don't really think it plays that big of a role. Obviously, the more room you have, the more you can move, and that's good for me. From getting range for kicks and moving sideways. But that's also bad for him if I want to get a takedown on him. If I want to wrestle close the distance, that's going to be harder for him. So it kind of balances itself out. Most of the fights I fought in my life were in a cage similar to the size of the Apex. So for me, that's normal. It's not like it's small. This is normal. Sometimes I might get a bigger cage, but today I'm getting the normal one.
How do you kind of see this one playing out then?
I can't really tell you too much, but I feel like he's going to be himself. He's going to come out throwing bombs. I'm going to stay calm in the storm, find my openings, and start punishing him.
Just a couple more things. You get past Pete. Like, what do you think a win here does for you?
A win here is huge. I'll be, 3 wins in a row in the UFC. With the first loss being to Rafa, in a very close fight. Mm-hmm. I think this past Saturday he proved that he's a high-level fighter. So, no shame in that, and I learned a lot from it. And from there, maybe I get a rematch with him soon, or maybe some bigger fight, some ranked guy soon, or just a bigger name, somebody that has recognition, has some shine I can take from.
I know most contracts start out just 4 fights, and this obviously is your 4th fight in the UFC. Like, are you fighting out your deal here then, or have you already re-signed?
I resigned. I got a new deal. This is my second contract.
How exciting is that for you then, just to like already get a new deal with the UFC and they're already showing faith to not let you fight out the deal and they want to kind of sign you before the deal ends?
Yeah, I love it. I'm very happy with it. I'm thankful to my agent, Lance, and, Jason House from Iridium. They got the deal for me. They got me a good deal. And I'm very happy with the UFC. I love fighting for them. I think all the fights so far, have been bangers. And I'm happy they want to keep me around. I want to stick around and go as far as possible. So I'm very happy with it. I'm very proud. It's also like a big personal achievement. And like, as an Israeli fighter, I think I'm the first one to ever get like a second contract in the UFC. So that's a good thing.
Just final thing, like what is the goal then for you this year? Like obviously first fight, end of April, I imagine you probably want it sooner. So like what is kind of the goal then for you this year?
I'd love to fight 3 times. I think it's doable. April, July, August, December, something like that would be perfect for me. I do want to go home. I haven't been home in a year. I haven't seen my family in a year, but I can make it quick if there's a fight, that they offer me after this one. If I get out of it, without any injuries, I would even postpone the trip if I can fight again as soon as possible. But if I have time, I would really like to go and see my family.
Well, Natan, I appreciate the time. Thank you so much for doing this.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.